Book of Jude. Thank you for all your prayers and support over the last week or so. It was obviously a little bit of a difficulty with my father and me being sick, but we're all on the mend. My dad is home. He is resting and hopefully getting to full recovery very soon. And I am almost better. I think my eye's feeling okay. Hopefully nobody looks at me and goes, ah. But it was last week. I sprung. By the way, I didn't decide not to teach on Sunday until Saturday at 11 a.m. Called up Luther. I said, "Guess what?" He's like, "Oh no." So it is truly a privilege to have somebody like Luther being able to literally call at the 11th hour and to ask him to fill in for me. So I will always appreciate everything he's done for both me and for this church. It would have been difficult to know how to handle last week without his help. We are in Jude. Jude, contend earnestly for the faith. We are hopefully getting to verse 13. You'll see why. There's not a whole lot to say about 12 and 13. So basically, we're trying to get through the content of verses 10 and 11. Remember, the book is written to believers. And in the introduction, it indicates both Jews and Gentiles a common salvation. The main exhortation is to fight earnestly for the faith. And the church as a whole is to take this exhortation seriously and directly. But each believer is commanded to take on this activity in the body in which they belong. This is not fight on Facebook forums. Rather, this is dealing with you handle the in-house business. And we've talked about this in almost any activity. As we try to understand the instructions, most of the instructions are for in-house. Love one another. Everyone loves to put out the instructions and take it to the next door neighbor who you don't like. Rather than deal with your family, deal with your church. And if you get that right, the spillover into your community or your acquaintances or your fellow workers, that comes naturally. We have to deal with our house first before we can help others. The letter is an encouragement to believers. Everyone tries to take Jude as a warning to believers. No, it's a warning to false teachers. But it's an encouragement to believers. Evil will not go unpunished. We don't take this to the streets. You false teacher, guess what? Read Jude. That's what's in store for you. You don't do that. They don't need to be told they're damned. They need to be told what the gospel is. And that actually comes out and later in Jude in verses 22 and 23. Have mercy on some, save others, snatching them out of the fire. So you are to help those, even though we are encouraged that God will have his justice. This is about the judgment of unbelievers who are irreverent and have a mental attitude of destroying God's plan and attempting to or succeeding in having believers reject grace for immorality and denial of our Lord Jesus Christ. That's their goal. Now, this is why we had to be very careful, because especially when we start getting into verses 10 through 13, we don't call everybody we disagree with a false teacher. There are plenty of people out there that are trying to do right, that are wrong. They're not false teachers. A false teacher is somebody who is an unbeliever who is willfully trying to come in and into a particular body and deceive them. And I do know false teachers, and we got to be very careful who we dictate that to, because we're basically pronouncing them a railing judgment if we call them a false teacher. We're in point number 3, God's judgment exemplified, and we saw examples in history, destruction of Israel's enemies in verse 5, destruction of angels who sin in verse 6, destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah in verse 7. Now, point B was false teachers who revile, verses 8 through 10. We've been in that passage for 2 weeks, and we'll finish it up this week. And we have an example from the angelic conflict dealing with Michael and the devil, which gets a lot of fanfare, but really the point's pretty simple. These false teachers are unreasoning animals. That is not ad hominem. We're not trying to insult them. We're simply describing who they are. And finally, the point of the entire book is verse 11, woe to them. Woe to them. And then it goes into description. They have followed after the error of Cain. They gone after the payment of Balaam and the rebellion of Korah. We'll talk about that today. We don't have to spend a lot of time on it because the point of the book is simply to describe who these false teachers are acting like and what path they have taken. In verses 12 through 13, how do these false teachers compare? And that's where we're hopefully going to end our lesson today. And this lesson is titled, False Teachers Who Are Judged. Now, if you're not a false teacher, you don't have to worry about this. But you take encouragement because you know those who have evil plans and motives and deceitfulness, man, it's not going to be a good road for them. Let's pick it up in verse 8 and give it a read. Jude 8, yet in the same way these men also by dreaming defile the flesh and reject authority and revile angelic majesties. But Michael, the archangel, when he disputed with the devil and argued about the body of Moses, did not dare pronounce against him a railing judgment, but said, the Lord rebuke you. But these men revile the things which they do not understand, and the things which they know by instinct, like unreasoning animals. By these things they are destroyed. Woe to them, for they have gone the way of Cain, and for pay they have rushed headlong into the error of Balaam, and perished in the rebellion of Korah. These are men who are hidden reefs in your love feasts, and they feast without fear, caring for themselves. Clouds without water, carried along by winds. Autumn trees without fruit, doubly dead, uprooted. Wild waves of the sea, casting up their own shame like foam. Wandering stars from whom the black darkness has been reserved forever. Now, as you can see in verses 12 through 13, very descriptive, very flowery language. We don't need to sit there and dwell upon every single word or syllable. What you have is get the idea in your head and see the word picture. And you can kind of see exactly how Jude categorizes these individuals. We'll go ahead and talk about those descriptions a little bit, but we're not going to dwell a whole lot of time on it. The false teachers, as we already read, are in the same mold as people from history. They reject and speak evil of and dismiss everything that is right and good and seek to pull down everything that is established as authority, especially that which is ordained by God. They hate the authority which has been established by God, regardless of what that authority is. They try to pull it down. They revile against it. And they're actually claiming to, by dreaming, which is basically they say they have a revelation from God, and they do not. These people are, how does Peter say it? Unprincipled. Well, we'll just move on. Michael, in verse 9, although he was the archangel, is not the Lord. And so when we look at how it's contrasted, we don't try to figure out where this story comes from. We don't try to look at the assumption of Moses and the pseudepigrapha. What we try to do is make sure that we understand the point of the passage. And then the particulars we can go ahead and debate upon, have a little fun with, but we don't have to sit there and try to make sense of everything. We simply get the idea. What is the point of verse 9? Michael knew his place. Michael understands his place in creation. He is not the Lord. He has no authority unless it was given to him by God, and evidently it was not, because when they had an argument, he didn't say, I rebuke you. He didn't hit him with a sword. He said, the Lord rebuke you. So he understood his place, and he understands who is the authority in the universe. Mankind have the same problem as these false teachers, do we not? We think we're in control. We're not in control. We don't control anything. We don't control whether we live or die all the time, right? Sarah and I have a common phrase, watching people drive. How are these people still alive? Is it dumb luck? Or is there some type of providence over them that they're still alive? I don't understand. Because you can go out there right now, drive around, and you could die today. And you didn't decide that. You have no control over it, unless you're just, being very careful and defensive driving, whatnot. But we all know life is fragile, and yet we think we're in control. These false teachers do the same thing. They think they're in control. They think they have a handle on things. They think they got it. They think they have authority, and they do not. So the contrast between Michael and these false teachers is really the point, right? And that's what we really have to make sure we understand going into verse 10. Verse 10 is the contrast. But these men revile the things which they do not understand. And remember, that's blaspheme. They blaspheme things they don't get. You know, have you ever been like, had a sage or a wise saying, basically saying, if you don't get it, don't say anything. You know, if you don't understand what you're talking about, just quiet. But specifically, if you're going to pick a fight, you better know who you're picking a fight against. And so if you're going to blaspheme something, if you're going to go ahead and say, oh, you're cursed, you better know who you're cursing. Otherwise, that may come back very strongly against you. That's basically the overall idea. They blaspheme things they don't get. And the things which they know by instinct, like unreasoning animals, by these things they are destroyed. And that, man, talk about something harsh to say to somebody. You only know things by instinct. You are an unreasoning animal. I don't think I could go more harsh than that on a reality basis. These false teachers are detailed in three ways. First, they revile. We've already dealt with revile, blaspheme. We dealt with that in verse 8. They are instinctual. Man. I was actually, if you have my notes from the previous time, I was wrong. I had to rewrite everything. I go, you know what? I don't know what I was looking at. I misread the Greek word. And I did the bad thing, and you make an assumption, and you just ran with the assumption. Oh, that was wrong. So when I was re-looking at it again, I'm like, wait a second. That isn't sukikos. That's something different. So they are instinctual, they are unreasoning animals, and they are destroyed. Now that's the three things. So basically revile, instinctual, unreasoning animals, and they are destroyed. Since we've already dealt with revile, we'll go ahead and jump to instinctual. The word instinctual is the word phusikos. Phusikos. No, phusikos. Yeah, see the O. That's an omega. Phusikos. There you go. Phusikos. It's a cognate of a word that basically means to grow. To grow up. The cognates of this word is very strange, and it's not used a lot, but it has a lot of cognates. And a lot of the cognates are only used one or two times. The cognates include tribe, plant, grow up, puff up as in make proud, natural, and kinds of animals or species. And you look at the word group going, man, this is all over the place. Yes. And when you look at this word specifically, phusikos, this adverb is only used once here. Now, the adjective in a similar fashion is used elsewhere. Then that's where we kind of go towards. You can look at the adjective in Romans 1:26 and 27, and it's the word natural. For this reason, God gave them over degrading passions, for their women exchanged the natural function for which it is unnatural. So you're dealing with the natural function of a woman. You all know what we're talking about. I don't have to be descriptive. In 127, same idea. And the same way also men abandon the natural function of the woman and burn their desire toward one another, men with men. We know what we're talking about. Don't need to get into description. There's a natural order, a natural way things are supposed to happen. That's ordained by God, how we're built. 2 Peter chapter 2, verse 12 also uses the adjective, and it is a parallel to Jude. But these, like unreasoning animals, born as creatures of instinct to be captured and killed, reviling where they have no knowledge, will in the destruction of those creatures also be destroyed. Creatures of instinct. So the like unreasoning animals born as creatures of instinct. It's the idea that is basically a natural instinctual concept. How would you define this word? Well, again, I don't think we have to go that far. We know what animals who only act on instinct. You can't have a conversation with your dog, no matter how hard you try. All right, Luna, I know you understand me. Stop stealing meat off the counter. And she's just going to look at you like, and when you leave, she's going to go, instinct takes over. Now, perhaps you can train them well enough not to jump on counters. Not Luna. And not Buttercup either. Wesley's too dumb. He doesn't know what he's sniffing. But they become instinctively, they're eventually instinct takes over and training goes out the window a lot of times. So when you deal with instinct, it's both in Jude and in 2 Peter, it's an activity without knowledge. You don't know, and an animal situation, they can't know. So you have these false teachers that are acting like animals, not because they can't know, but because they're unwilling to know. So all they can do is what? Go on base knowledge. That's the only thing they have. This activity without knowledge is likened to animal-like behavior. They are like, and that like is actually there. It's a host word. It's comparing these false teachers to animals who alagos. Alagos, basically. Alagos is a word alpha negative with logos. Logical. Thinking. They're not thinking animals. Again, we understand that animals have some type of traits, emotions sometimes. When it comes down to it, you can train them to a certain point, but they really can't reason. So these false teachers are destitute of reason. They are not logical. They are contrary to proper thought. They are absurd. Now, we say absurd kind of flippantly and kind of with fun, but the word actually means having no logical basis for anything. Do you remember in dealing with our philosophy and our worldview classes that there is one reality? Now, we think this is real. No, this is going to be burned up. It's gone. It's not forever. Temporary things is not reality. You may think it is, but it's not. What is reality? Eternality. Who is in control of that reality? God, Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ tells you what is real. And when you're told what is real and then you go, no, that's not real, what does that make you? If you're operating outside the realm of reality, what does that make you? Insane. You're absurd. You're, any kids? Okay. You're stupid. And that's not an insult. That's reality. They are working contrary to proper thought. The truth of God, the belief in God, belief in Jesus Christ is the only true rational thing you can do. And then learning about your reality through God's word is the only way to really have a good understanding of what your reality is. And then you function in your life, in this temporary life, in regards to reality, then you're called reasoning, responsible, logical, sensible, because you're acting in conjunction with God's truth. Jude is not using ad hominem. He's bringing out the reality of their nature. False teachers do not understand. And again, it's not that they're not capable. I know they're capable. How? Because of Jude 22 and 23. So you have a responsibility to try to help them, although they're probably not going to respond. So they have not an inability, but they have no interest in understanding the truth of God. They limit themselves to simple knowledge, and then they speak evil of the truth. This is why it's so bad. It's not simply because they are unbelieving. It's because they refuse to acknowledge it. And it's different than somebody who is over there and is simply not, he's just not responsive. This person has everything. This false teacher has everything because they're in the midst of truth. They're not in their own group. They're in our group. And they're in the midst of truth. And they ignore it. They have no desire to understand it. Then they speak evil of the truth, which is something they don't understand. You can see how this all begins to work together in verses 8 through 10. And they will die in judgment of their own obstinate corruption. This is how they are described. This is how animals function. They do not think, they do not reason through information. They simply satisfy their fleshly lusts. These false teachers have a desire, and that desire overwhelms them. And everything they are and everything they're about overcomes their ability or their, even if they had a desire to understand the truth. This also correlates that the false teachers do not understand. They speak against God, his truth, and those who believe in God. They limit themselves to simple, natural function. This passage provides knowledge of their true nature and information about their end. So, as believers, when we see a false teacher, as described in Jude, what should you do with them? Ignore them, number one. Do not listen to their message. Now, of course, you have to have a conversation. I'm not saying don't actually listen to their message, but you're not going to consider their message as truth. You can easily evaluate this. And number two, obviously, when we get to Jude later on, you're going to try to help them. But you do not let them teach. You don't go, well, in a sense of fairness, let's go ahead and let them present. No, you don't. No. They can go to their other place, not here. So because they will die in judgment of their own obstinance and corruption, what's the next passage? Woe to them, verse 11. Woe to them. Ooh. So once again, let's go ahead and just look at verse 11. It says, woe to them, for they have gone the way of Cain, and for pay they have rushed headlong in the error of Balaam, and perished in the rebellion of Korah. Woe to them. Now, woe in Greek is woe. It's not a word. It's a it denotes pain or displeasure, or describes a state of intense hardship or distress. And actually, the word itself comes from the root word, meaning towel. It's not really a word. We pronounce it woe, but it's actually just It's how, if you could translate that, that's how you would translate it, because it's literally just a verbal expression of extreme pain. Unfortunately, we had the experience of being in the hospital. And if you ever heard somebody in pain in the hospital, they let loose. There's nothing holding back. And it is like, it's not going, wow, I feel bad. It's scary. This is what I think of when I think of woe. And when God pronounces woe, it is reserved to the worst of the worst. Matthew chapter 11, we're getting to this point on Wednesday. Woe to you, Horizon. Woe to you, Bethsaida, for the miracles had occurred in Tyre and Sidon, which occurred in you, they would have repented long ago in sackcloth and ashes. They don't woe Tyre, they don't woe Sidon, they woe Horizon and woe Bethsaida. Nevertheless, I say to you, it will be more tolerable for Tyre and Sidon than in the day of judgment than for you. In other words, it's going to be worse for you two cities than it would be for the other two cities, which are absolutely evil. Woe to you. Oh, that's what woe means. So when you think of woe, think of this. Not only that, think of Capernaum. You will not ascend to heaven, will you? You will ascend to Hades. Woe to you. For the miracles that occurred in Sodom, which occurred in you, it would remain to this day. Capernaum rejected most of the signs done by Jesus Christ. That's where he spent most of his time. And the inhabitants said, no, you're not Jesus. Woe to you. Nevertheless, I say to you, it'll be more tolerable in the land of Sodom in the day of judgment than for you. Matthew 23, 13 through 15 also has woes. But woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, because you shut off the kingdom of heaven from people. You're not just shut off yourself. You're actually actively, this is very similar to the false teachers. They're actively trying to prevent people from believing in Jesus Christ. They're actively doing that. Woe to you. For you do not enter in yourselves, nor will you allow those who are entering to go in. Woe to you, scribes, Pharisees, hypocrites, because you devour widows' houses. And for a pretense, you make long prayers. Therefore, you'll receive a greater condemnation from God. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, because you travel around on sea and land to make one proselyte. And when he becomes one, you make him twice as much a son of hell as yourselves. Woe to you. Revelation 8:13. Then I looked and I heard an eagle flying in mid-heaven, saying with a loud voice, woe, woe, Woe to those who dwell on the earth, because the remaining blast of the trumpet of the three angels are about to sound. When the woes are not good. And so when God pronounces woe to them in Jude, what's coming to them? This is not simple judgment for unbelievers. These are people who are obstinate. These are people who have truth and deny it. These are people who have been exposed and throw it away. And then they not only do that, but they blaspheme the truth and try to lead the believers away. Woe to them. God is not going to hold back. Now here they have them going away, not going away, but going away, a hodos, a road, going for pay, and perishing in rebellion. And three examples: Cain, Balaam, and Korah. So if you're reading Jude, what do you have to have knowledge of? So far you have the things that happen surrounding the Exodus. You have dealing with angels. You have Sodom and Gomorrah. You have Cain, Balaam, and Korah. You have to have a lot of Old Testament in your brain to read this with fervor. Otherwise, you have to go back and read. Cain and Balaam, I don't want to go back, because I don't think it's... We all know the story of Cain, right? If you don't know, go back to Sunday school. I'm sorry. Balaam, everyone loves a talking donkey, right? Korah, you may go, who? Okay, we'll talk about Korah for a little bit. But we'll go ahead and just talk about Cain briefly, and the fact that Cain obviously is a murderer and hate and jealousy because of those who have both truth and life and love. How do I know that? I don't have to go back to Genesis chapter 4. I can go to 1 John chapter 3, verses 11 through 12 and read, "For this is the message which you have heard from the beginning, that we should love one another, not as Cain, who was of the evil one, and slew his brother. And for what reason did he slay him? Because his deeds were evil and his brothers were righteous." There was not just, hey, I'm bad and you're good. It's jealousy. The false teachers are the way of Cain. They see what is good. And instead of going, wow, that's good, let me join that, they go, hey, that's good, let me destroy it. Some people just want to see other people burn. Balaam. The story of Balaam is very enticing. It's, you get to talk about a donkey and all kinds of stuff. But what you realize is that Balaam is a prophet of God. And he took his understanding about what would entice Israel into sin, and he sold it. He sold the information. And what did the enemies of Israel do? They sent in the pretty women with all their idols, and they got the children of Israel to fall because of basically sex and idol worship. Same problem they always had. So he sold that information to their enemies, and they sent them in so that they would fall, so that they would fail, and he was successful. In 2 Peter chapter 2, 13 through 16, it talks about this a little bit more details. Suffering wrong as the wages of doing wrong, they count it as pleasure to revel in the daytime. They are stains and blemishes, revealing in their deceptions as they carouse you, having eyes full of adultery. They never cease from sin, enticing unstable souls. This is what the false teachers are doing. Jude is not as descriptive as 2 Peter, but you see the exact same language and how it applies. Having a heart trained in greed, accursed children, forsaking the right way, they have gone astray, having followed the way of Balaam the son of Beor, who loved the wages of unrighteousness. For he received a rebuke from his own transgressions. For a mute donkey, don't read that in the King James, let you figure it out. Speaking with the voice of a man, restrained the madness of the prophet. He sold. He said, I know the truth, and I'm selling the truth so that I can make a temporary gain. And this is what the false prophets emulate. They're not Balaam. They're not prophets of the Most High God. They're simply following the same pathway of Balaam. And then there's Korah. The rebellion of Korah is found in Numbers 16. If you want to go ahead and turn there, we'll read some there in number 16. Korah, with 250 leaders. Korah is a Levite. He is of the priestly line, along with 250 others of the priestly line, men of renown, people who were well respected amongst Israel, came and told Moses to his face, "You're not special. We're all holy. What makes you think you can hold yourself above us?" And Moses immediately hit the dirt. "You don't know what you're doing. You're going to die for this." And so in Numbers 16, 8 through 11, you see this. Then Moses said to Korah, "Hear now, you sons of Levi, is it not enough for you that the God of Israel has separated you from the rest of the congregation of Israel to bring you near to himself, to do the service of the tabernacle of the Lord?" This is privileged stuff you get to do. "And to stand before the congregation to minister to them, and that he has brought you near, Korah and all your brothers, sons of Levi, with you? And are you seeking for the priesthood also?" Because remember, Aaron had the priesthood. And so they go, "We want the priesthood too. We're holy too. We should have that too." Ooh. "Therefore, you and all your company are gathered together against the Lord." You're not gathered against the people. You're not gathered against Aaron and against Moses. "But as for Aaron, who is he that you grumble against him?" In other words, You're grumbling against the Lord. Aaron, he's a nobody. He is simply put in a position. He's not special. I am not special. Imagine being Moses and basically telling people, "It's not me." Moses, who has all of this privilege, all of this ability, has this staff, seen all these things, talks face to face with God. He goes, "I'm not special." That's why Moses is called one of the most humble and the meekest person who have ever lived. He tells them and goes through the process. You go do this. You wash yourself. You consecrate yourself. You come and present yourself before the Lord. And then verse 25. Oh, Israel's history is a perfect example of don't make God mad. Then Moses arose and went to Dathan and Abram and the elders of Israel following him. And he spoke to the congregation, "Depart now from the tents of these wicked men, and touch nothing that belongs to them, or you too will be swept away in all their sin." So they got back from all the dwellings of Korah, Dathan, Abram, and Dathan and Abram came out and stood at the doorway of their tents, along with their wives and their sons and their little ones. Moses said, "By this you shall know that the Lord has sent me to do all these deeds, for this is not my doing." So he's saying, I'm not the one choosing this. God chose this, and you instigated it. If these men die the death of all men, or if they suffer the fate of all men, in other words, they don't die right now, they die later, okay? Then the Lord has not sent me. But if the Lord brings about an entirely new thing, something spectacular that you have not seen before, and the ground opens its mouth and swallows them up with all that is theirs, and they descend alive into the grave. Don't freak out over Sheol. They're not going to hell. Okay, they're going to the grave. Then you will understand that these men have spurned the Lord. And he finished speaking all these words, and the ground that was under them split open, and the earth opened its mouth and swallowed them up, and their households and the men who belonged to Korah with all their possessions. So they and all that belonged to them went down alive to Sheol, and the earth closed over them, and they perished in the midst of the assembly. All Israel who were around them fled their outcry, for they said, "The earth may swallow us up." Fire also came forth from the Lord and consumed the 250 men who were offering the incense. They're following in the same pattern. Now again, they're not Korah, they're not Israel, they're not Levites. Don't make the same mistake that other people make. Don't correlate things that are not supposed to be correlated. They are simply men who are falling into the same pattern of behavior as Korah. These false teachers think they know. They blaspheme and speak evil of things they do not understand. And God is there patiently waiting till the time of his judgment when he will swallow them up whole. And they will not escape. These men think too much of themselves, disregard God's word, and spoke against those whom God has chosen to speak for him. This word rebellion of Korah is the word antilogia. Antilogia. Anti, against, logia, to speak. They're speaking against. This rebellion is not, I'm going to do something different than what you're telling me to do. I'm speaking against what is true and what is right and what is holy. I take that in two specific ways. One, the apostles are obviously very active. They have the word of God. They have information given to them. They've heard the apostles directly as emissaries of Jesus Christ, and they have rejected the apostles' word, that is the word of God, and they rejected the apostles themselves by going against them in the churches that they are dealing with. And then it gets into a very flowery language. 5 word pictures. Jude 12 through 13. These men who are hidden reefs in your love feast, when they feast with you without fear, caring for themselves. Clouds without water, carried along by winds. Autumn trees without fruit, doubly dead, uprooted. Wild waves of the sea, casting up their own shame like foam. Wandering stars from whom the black darkness has been reserved forever. And you can read that right there and go, I get it. These men, these false teachers, they're dangerous and they have no goodness in them. They are sunken rocks, hidden reefs in your love feasts. Now that word, that idea, that love feast word, it's agape, and it's actually just the word agape, just love. The reason why they translate it love feast is because of what's afterwards. They feast without fear. So if you want to translate this very literally, it doesn't make any sense. These are men who hidden reefs in your love when they feast with you. And you go, I don't know what the love is. So they translate the agape as love feasts. And it's a strange way to put it. And it's really not I'm not comfortable with the translation, but we see the point. People who are sneaking in, spying out our love. Because the goal of instruction, the goal of truth, as we talked about last hour, dealing with Jesus Christ and Christology, is to love like Christ loved, is to have this camaraderie. And they sneak in and they pop in as if they want to be part of that love. And what are they? They're sunken rocks. Everyone understands what a sunken rock is. It's a hidden reef. You're sailing along and now you can't move and you're sinking. You cannot, if you're not careful, if you don't know the waters, if you don't know who you're dealing with, they will wreck you. Paul says that other people have suffered shipwreck in regards to their faith because probably of false teachers like this. The hidden reef is both in English and Greek, an unseen peril that makes sea navigation deadly. Clouds without water, that's a fun one. And again, I like clouds without water. Clouds block the sun and I don't get wet. But if you're going to be in an agricultural society and you need water and you don't have sprinklers, what do you need? You need rain. Here's some clouds. Yay, rain. No rain. And you're like, and you're disappointed, right? I know Ray always talks about we needed rain, right? Whenever it rains, we needed that rain. No matter how much rain we've had, we've always need more. And it's true. If you don't want to water your lawn or water your plants, you need good rain. And we've had actually some very good overnight rains recently. And it's actually kind of a relief because I'm trying to regrow my grass. And what don't I need to do? I just check my weather and go, hey, it's supposed to rain later tonight. I'm not going to water. Saves me a little bit of money and a little bit of time. But these false teachers are clouds without water. You anticipate them having something good, but they do not. And they're simply driven by the wind. They're whatever goes, whatever's popular at the moment. This is what they're going to say, and they give you nothing of value. They're simply clouds without water. They are autumn trees without fruit. Now, again, if anybody agricultural, this is very understandable, right? You have an apple tree, and you go out to an orchard, you see all the other trees around them with apples, and you go to one tree, no apples. What does that tell you about the tree? It's the same soil, it's the same fertilizer, same water. What's wrong with the tree? It's dead. What do you do with a dead tree? You cut it down. You get rid of it. So you twice died having been uprooted. Again, don't drive the imagery to a point that it shouldn't be. A dead tree, even if it looks okay on the outside, is not, if it doesn't have any fruit on it, it's dead. And they are twice died. I simply just take this as looking at the tree, which is dead, it's also going to get killed, right? These false teachers are dead. They're not spiritually alive. And guess what? They're going to suffer a second death. I'm not talking about the physical death. I'm talking about the other spiritual death. They're spiritually not alive, and they're going to suffer the second death. That's all. Don't try to, again, stretch it out to a point that it doesn't fit anymore. Wild waves of the sea. This took me a little bit because I'm going, okay, is that just they're dangerous? What's going on here? Now the sea is actually it's a Hebraic picture. We don't really see this a whole lot because we don't remember a lot of the Hebrew or the Old Testament which we read. But if you go back to Isaiah 57, I'll go ahead and have it up here for you. Isaiah 57, 20 through 21, but the wicked are like the tossing sea, for it cannot be quiet. And the waters toss up refuse and mud. There is no peace. That foam, what is foam? Do you know what foam is? Foam is the gunk in the ocean. This isn't like the nice sea foam, the spray from the ocean. This is that stuff that rolls up on the ocean. We used to call it cat pee, or not cat pee, but fish pee. You don't want to drink that. That's gross. And so you find a place where there's no foam because they're basically swimming in waste. You don't want that. So this whole idea of the refuse and mud, if you've ever been in a sea that is really being tossed around, it actually drives up a lot of nasty stuff coming from the ocean. And they're wild. They're untamed. They're just, again, instinctual. Like animals are instinctual, the sea is instinctual. Finally, wandering stars. I'm going to go with the conjecture. What is a wandering star? Now, if you actually go into certain aspects, some people say, oh, wandering stars are their planets. Because if you look into the night sky, you'll be able to see stars, and they're always in the same place, right? They move around a little bit, but you can always know where they're going. The wandering stars are planets that are not necessarily lined up with the stars. However, I don't think that's accurate. That's how some people take this. I don't know why they would be planets. Doesn't make any sense. A wandering star is typically understood, and there's evidences both in Greek and in Hebrew that this is a falling star, a meteorite. And they're not in the cosmos. So let me go ahead and explain a couple of things here. A falling star, what is a falling star? A meteorite comes in, burns in the atmosphere, lights up really like, wow, oh. It's kind of like fruit stripe gum. You know, it tastes awesome for about 3 seconds. And when you ever go out and watch a meteor shower, it's pretty awesome, right? But you follow one, it goes, gone. Kayla, poor Kayla, we didn't know she had bad eyes. We'd always go out there to watch the meteor showers, and she never saw them because she had bad eyes. And one time she got her glasses, she goes, oh, I can see them. It's so cool. So we just thought that she was just always missing, blinking at the wrong moment, so to speak. So the falling stars are just, they look brilliant, but there's nothing there. They look awesome, but there's no real light. It's simply just burning. Now, when I say not in the cosmos, cosmos is a word, okay, that we use the word for cosmos, right? But it's a word. What does the word cosmos mean? You remember what it means? It means orderly, okay? So a wandering star means they're not part of that which is orderly. They're not in the right place. It's falling randomly. And there's actually great evidence, if you go back into creation science, that meteorites are actually a result of catastrophe. Of God sending through here like a ice comet of some sort, creating all kinds of debris in space now, and all of a sudden you have meteorites coming down and asteroids and comets that are actually just traces of catastrophe in our universe. They're not part of the created order. So these wandering stars, these false teachers, are not orderly, and they are destined for the gloom of darkness, kept to the age for the eternity. So, again, we don't want to beat them up too badly, but because Jude does, we will. Because we also have to get into verses 14 through 16. And it's going to be great because once we get out of 14 through 16, then it comes the good news. We get our encouragement back. We get what we're doing, what we do, and remember, and how we respond. But we first have to finish with the judgment. These false teachers are described in their mentality and in their actions. They are contrasted with the truth, and later we'll see with the apostles. Knowing who they are and their fate should stir us up to be ones who contend earnestly for the faith and not allow any false teacher to lead our flock astray. This is everyone's responsibility. We have both the content secured. We don't have to guess as to what the information should be because we have the Bible. And the confidence of understanding. We know the methodology. We know how to read this book with confidence because the Bible tells us how to read it. So that, since we have the content and the understanding confidently assured, we can defend the faith with confidence. Notice that I have the faith in capitalized because it is the content, make sure we understand that, it is the content of our doctrinal understanding. And we can defend that with absolute fervor because we have everything right in front of us. All right? With that, we'll close. And we'll pick it up in verse 14 next week. God in heaven, thank you so much for your word, that we can have confidence in your truth. We understand that the false teachers are going to be dealt with sharply, but we also pray for them, that they come to knowledge of the truth. Help us to be able to identify those with bad doctrine or our false teachers, and help us to be able to confidently assure them of what the truth is. And perhaps we can be the tools used by you to snatch them out of the fire. We thank you. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.